from the outset, the President Biden has expressed a desire to work with Republicans, and traditionally infrastructure, as we traditionally define it, roads, bridges, air, seaports, as Steve was mentioning, has had bipartisan support. And it wouldn't surprise me if the administration attempted to split off that part of this bill to try and lure Republican support. The problem we have there, though, is the Biden administration is pretty adamant about paying for any kind of infrastructure with tax increases. And I think we know that Republicans are not real excited about raising taxes, especially rolling back the tax increases that they passed in 2017. So it's quite possible that if the Biden administration is really ginning hard for a bipartisan proposal, at least one bipartisan win before they have to face voters in midterm elections, Democrats then may be convinced to scale down the infrastructure, or at least split it into smaller pieces, and the traditional infrastructure piece isn't paid for in order to secure Republican support. Only because
that's what's called a bipartisan victory.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that is a concern.
I think there's
I worry about that.
I worry about that too. Steve, you raised a possibility that's even somewhat more insidious on the spending side, on the pay for side, which is another alternative might be to scale back everything they're doing, but not to take anything out, just make it all kind of temporary or short term, pay for that. But you've gotten stuff in the budget that would have to be paid for eventually because it would be extended. So maybe you look like you were doing something that was not that expensive, but in fact, it could well be. Is that something from your experience that you could see them doing?
Well, there's an old expression about the camel's nose under the tent. And Congress has a long history of identifying some worthy goal, recognizing that it doesn't have the money to pay for it. So what it does is it says, we're going to try this thing, and we're just going to do it for 1 year. We're just going to do it one time, and it's going to be temporary, and we're just going to see how it goes. But the idea is that once Congress passes legislation and appropriates money for some worthy goal, you develop a constituency for that goal, whatever it is. And once you've developed a constituency who's going to lobby for that, that purpose to achieve that goal, they're going to keep coming back. And so the idea is, well, now that we've started this program, we can't possibly turn off the spigot and make it go away. So we're going to have to extend it. And so, going back to, the Affordable Care Act, there were some provisions there where they're going to, they were going to do long-term care insurance, and they were going to phase it in and, pay for it. So they would put the money up front and they'd phase in the benefits, so it looked like it was paid for. And so, you have this, process by which, you don't really match up your spending and your revenue, and you say, okay, we're going to do this, and it's going to cost this much, and it's going to go on forever, and we're going to identify a funding source so that everything can be added up in a year-by-year basis to make sure that it all comes out. That's simply not, arguably that is how things should be done, but that tends not to be how they actually get done. And so, the idea is that instead of doing the big $2.3 trillion package and putting all the money in there for all the years, 8 or 10 years, you just do little pieces, and you say, it's okay, this is only for 1 year or 2 years. But then the hope is once you get it started, no one is going to come back and say, oh, well, we didn't really mean it, and we don't want to, that was such a great idea. How could we possibly not continue to do it? And so I think that, there is some danger and some precedent that is how things have tended to work.
Yeah, and we've certainly had the experience of disappearing tax cuts that would eventually be extended too. So we could have an interesting year following the appearing and disappearing parts of the budget. It's going to be really important to keep track of how all this plays out.